In this video, I'm going to explain to you why most BIM modelers won't be able to become BIM managers, coordinators in their career in 2024 onwards. And the career growth insight that I'm about to share with you is going to make your career growth a mathematical equation. You might not know why some people grow quicker, why some people grow slower, why you grew so fast at the start of your career, but now it's seeming to be stagnant. But at the end of this video, you're going to know exactly the mathematical principle, the psychological principle. It's going to become an equation so that you don't have to focus on understanding. You just need to focus on doing, right? So my promise by the end of this video is that you're going to understand a key psychological principle which will allow you to grow in your career. There's only one action that you need to be taking in order to grow, and then everything else related to career growth will take care of itself. And when you understand why this one action works, right? Why it works in terms of psychology and how that works in terms of a mathematical equation and how that actually causes career growth, then you don't have to worry about everything because everything will take care of itself as long as you focus on that one key task, right? The reason for this is based on this principle which I'm about to show you. So this is for you if you're currently a BIM modeler and you have a growth mindset, but you've been feeling stagnant recently. This happens to everyone who doesn't know what I'm about to show you. It happens to essentially every single person that doesn't understand this key principle. And what I want to show you is the way to trick your brain into success without actually feeling like you're working hard. And that is what I'm going to show you by the end of this video, right? This is not related to your skill set. It's not related to your experience. It's not anything that you've heard me say in the past. This is actually based on psychology and how our brains work fundamentally, right? And there's a part of our brain that controls our behavior, which if you are not aware of, will also control you and you will not be able to know that. This means that you will spend time in your career knowing that you're self-sabotaging yourself and taking the optimal path. And then 5 years in the future, you will back into your life and you'll think, I thought I would have been in a completely different place by now, but I'm not. I thought I would have been in a management position by now, but I'm not. Some of the things that I thought I should have done like 5 years ago, like learning these skills, but I didn't do that, now I regret it. I thought I would have grown in my salary and I would have been making way more money than I'm making now, but I'm not, right? I want to grow, but I'm scared of the unknown. My family depends on my income and my stability. I feel like growing at this stage in my career requires a lot of risk, which I do not have the capacity to handle right now due to my responsibilities and dependence, right? This is what happens to a lot of people after they get a little bit into their career and they feel this stagnation happening. And it happens due to this psychological principle, which I'm about to break down. So why should you even listen to me, right? My name's Hesh. I was able to go from Monash University graduate to BIM coordinator within the first 6 months of my career. The only reason that I was able to do that was by understanding exactly how career works and like how career growth works, breaking it down into a mathematical formula so I'm able to grow and learn fast, right? So now I actually work one-on-one with architects and engineers who feel stagnant in their careers, people who are 5-10 years deep into their career and they're still Revit modelers. They want to learn BIM coordination and grow into coordination and management positions, and they really can't find a way to do that because they haven't been given the opportunity. I help them grow and I take them to that position, right? Even people who are early on in their careers, 1 to 2 years, and already feel stagnant, they feel themselves falling into stagnation early, like the initial signs are happening, and they want to prevent this situation above, right? They don't want to look 5 years into their future. When they don't want to look back and be like, I've been in the same position for 5 years, I'm still a modeler. I wanted to have grown by now, right? And so they work with me and I teach them the whole coordination skill set and I teach them everything in order for them to grow quicker. And so here's why I know what I'm about to share with you works, is most people that work with me are very ambitious, right? They always want to grow and constantly evolve. Some want to start their own company one day. Some want to become managers and directors in big companies. They want to take learning into their own hands rather than allowing their company to dictate their growth in life. They want to always provide the most value to the companies they work for, okay? So when you're an ambitious and growth-oriented person, you naturally look to understand the fundamental principles when it comes to growth because you're fascinated by it. And so you're obsessed by it, right? So essentially by taking action and learning, they actually activate this part of the brain, which I'm about to show you, in a positive way, which allows them to break out of stagnation. And so stagnation and career growth actually happens in your mind before it is reflected in your job, your salary, and your reality. So what we're trying to do is change the way the mind works and change the way you see things and act artificially without actually having to be in extreme circumstances. And I'll let you know what that means in a second. It'll make sense when we go through this, all right? So why the traditional way of BIM growth is a fallacy and guarantees stagnation for most people. So if you're in the BIM industry, maybe you're a modeler and you're already regretting the last 5 years you've felt a bit stagnant. Maybe for the last 6 months you felt stagnant, right? Or maybe you're entering the BIM industry and you've worked for a year or two and you're looking to find a way to grow into the next stage without having to get into that position right now. Here's why there is a growth fallacy in the industry. This is for most careers, especially for the BIM industry, but I will explain it to you in terms of the BIM industry, right? This is what typically happens when people want to grow in their careers. Most people will graduate from university, they'll start working as a BIM modeler, or they'll transition into the BIM industry somehow. And it's good because they have this skill of learning Revit, which will really help them in their career because you have a relatively high income skill set, right? The way you learn it was through university. You learned these skills. You maybe did some YouTube videos. You did all the YouTube videos and you learned how to model a house and you learned how to model an office building. You put it on your portfolio. You were so heavily invested in learning that was the only thing you were doing, right? Maybe you got to this stage where you could model MEP, ductwork, architecture, structure. You knew all of this stuff because you were heavily invested in learning, right? But this is where a lot of the stagnation can start to happen. After you get that job, you start to learn, you get the job as a modeler, and this is where the stagnation starts to happen. In order to break this down, I want to do like an imaginary exercise with you, right? I want you to think about your managers right now. Think about them. What sort of skills do they actually have? Think about a successful manager, or even if you're not in the industry trying to get into coordination and management, think about the industry, what a successful manager would have, right? A BIM coordinator, a BIM manager, a director of a company, what are the skills? They have so much more skills than what you have right now. It's pretty obvious, right? The reason they're able to get a job as a coordinator is because they have the coordination skill set. And the reason they're able to get a job as a manager is because they have the management skill set. So it's not really about experience, it's about skill set, right? They have the coordination skill set, they have the management skill set, they have the director skill set, they have the CEO's skill set, they have the skill set which takes them to the opportunity to learn more and grow, right? This is why you were able to get a job as a BIM modeler, right? Because you learned it through YouTube. You did this whole process. You went to university, you got a degree, you learned it through YouTube, you became a BIM modeler. It makes sense why that was the case, right? Because of that, you were able to go into a company and then start applying your skills to that company. You learned Revit, you can go start working as an architectural modeler. They might teach you the processes behind the company a bit more so you understand more, but you learned the skill which allowed you to get the job. Makes sense. It's a very logical transition. The key you need to understand is that position comes from skill. The good news is that skill is in your control. So if you think about it, career is also in your control, right? You can probably see where I'm trying to get here. Let's go back to talking about the manager. The manager is the go-to person when it comes to technical matters. Think of like a BIM coordinator, BIM manager. That person is the go-to person when it comes to technical matters, is the go-to person when it comes to coordination issues between MEP and architecture, because they know so much, because they've been in that position. They've been talking to the contractors, the consultants, all the different people and stakeholders, the clients within the whole project lifecycle that you need to speak to, right? The manager is the go-to person in terms of Revit issues because the manager had also done Revit back in his day, right? In summary, you will notice that the manager has not only the ability to use Revit, but also the ability to coordinate between architecture and MEP, has the knowledge regarding MEP basics so that he can actually make an informed decision regarding that. Also is good at communicating with others because he's been in the position where he's able to communicate with mechanical, plumbing, electrical, all the consultants, right? All these different stakeholders within the project. Since that he has the experience or she has the experience having done that, he becomes the go-to person, right? So the skill is what places him into that position. Once you learn the skill once, you can now move into different companies as the same position with holding the same title because you have the skill to be able to apply it. You might even notice that your manager knows less Revit than you. Why does that make sense? Because you actually know more technical things about Revit, like how to do schedules, how to be hyper efficient with filters and do them to a very high standard. But the thing is, you have a Revit skill set. You don't have a BIM coordinator skill set. So you need to learn the BIM coordination skill set, the BIM management skill set, in order to even have a chance to move into that sort of area, okay? So what actually causes stagnation in the traditional path? The traditional path of career growth, not career growth, career growth, is actually an illusion. And here's why. Right? As a Revit modeler who's been working for 3, 4, 5 years, there's no way you're going to be put into a position to learn the skills if you don't have those skills in the first place. It's similar to the chicken and the egg story, right? In order to become good at these things and excel, take the next step, you need to be able to put into a position where you can learn these things that the position requires. But then in order to learn these things, you have to be put in the position in the first place. But then if you're not put in the position, you can't learn the thing. So like, what comes first? What do you do, right? You're not going to be able to just be put into a position and they're going to chuck you into a deep end, because companies are not charities. A company is focused on making you efficient in your current job, okay? So it's fair enough, right? Companies are very busy. They have tight schedules. They have deadlines. Trying to make it as efficient as possible for the company. Company is not a charity. So if they've given you the position and not your manager, if they had given you the position to do coordination and not your manager, if they wanted you to learn, right, it would actually make the company less money. So it makes sense for a company, from a company's perspective, because they are not charities, they're actual companies that provide value to customers. The best option for them is to make you better at your current job, make your manager better at their current job, okay? Think about this. From an economical perspective, for a company's perspective, your manager does the coordination, you do the modeling. If they can focus on making you better at modeling, focus on making the manager better at coordination, then the company makes more money because everything starts to be efficient. That's how it works, right? If they try to make you better at coordination, but your manager's doing coordination, how does that work? In the short term, it doesn't actually make the company more money. And this is the exact reason why you might be a modeler for 5 years and they will get the coordinator, once a coordinator quits their job, goes into another job, they'll get an external coordinator from another company that's been doing coordination for a long time, like me, to come into that company and do the coordination while you're still a modeler. And the reason for that is because it takes a long time and resources and time for this company to train you to become that person rather than getting someone externally to do that job. And so this is the reason you need to learn the skills in order for you to be like, okay, I can take this position straight away. And the company is not going to teach it because the company is going to lose money. Okay, that's the main thing you need to understand. The company doesn't owe you anything. The company is giving you money for a job. So it's your choice, or like it's under your determination to learn the skills in the first place that allows you to grow and take that opportunity when the opportunity arises, because you're going to have that opportunity at some stage in your life. If you do not take the opportunity, you will probably never get that. It's like a opportunity that happens every couple of years. If your manager leaves suddenly, now you have the opportunity to do it. If you don't take it, then you will have to wait another couple of years. And that's another 3-4 years of stagnation, unless you want to move companies and move. Not many people want to move around, because there's so much uncertainty with that, right? Here is the key insight that you need to understand about the traditional path. So this is the diagram which I made for career trajectory. You can see where the stagnation starts to happen, okay? So you're a BIM modeler, you want to get into BIM management and coordination, and then the good thing is, after you learn BIM management and coordination, after you get put into a position where you can learn these things, where you can do these things, where you are the coordinator or manager because you have the skill, you can then go into project management. You can start your own firm. You can become an independent consultant. Everything opens up because as a BIM coordinator manager, you're coordinating everything. You get a good understanding with MEP services, how to speak to the project managers. You get an understanding about project management because now you're dealing with them all the time. You're talking to the stakeholders. You're talking to so much more people, and you're making the decisions rather than actually being told what to do and then modeling, right? So this is what opens up project management, starting your own firm, becoming an independent consultant. But the sad thing is, you can't go from BIM modeler to BIM coordinator or BIM manager unless you learn the skills. But to learn the skills, you have to be this person, okay? So like, it makes sense. In step 1, you are using YouTube University, and you went to university probably in order to learn skills about architecture. Maybe you have a BIM degree, you have an engineering degree. You focus heavily on learning these skills so much, and with YouTube, that you learn the skills and you're in a good position now where you can go straight away as a BIM modeler into a company. That makes sense. So then why did you stop learning these skills and expecting to go from here to here without even learning the skills and investing your time in learning the new skill set that's going to take you to the next stage, right? If this caused you to go here, then there is nothing else that's going to cause you to go here other than this. So you need to do this again in order to go here, right? That's what I'm trying to say. And this is what causes stagnation. This is why it is an illusion. You spent 20 years of your life learning all the way from like kindergarten to like university, and you learned so much things, and then you started your career. You probably grow for the first couple of years very quickly because now you're in the industry and you're learning about the industry. But then after that, you stagnate because you don't learn, because you stop learning, because what you did for 20 years is not what you're doing now. You're working a job. You're not actually, your job is not an educational institute. It's not something that's going to teach you all the time. You actually have to do the job that you know how to do, right? When you're doing the job you know how to do, you're not actually learning. In order to learn, you are learning for like maybe the first 6 months, first year, because it's new. In order to learn, you have to do this job plus another job, which is, again, you have to go back to step 1. So if you don't incorporate step 1, you don't wedge it between step 2 and step 3, you will never get to step 3, okay? And then you will never be able to get to project management, starting your own firm, becoming an independent consultant. And by the time you want to take the risk to even start your own firm, it'll be too late. You'll have too much responsibilities and you'll have too many kids that you're not going to be able to do that. So step 1 is when you went to university, when you went to YouTube University in order to learn the skills. I talked about that. And I talked about the reason you get stuck on step 2 is because you haven't really invested in learning skills. You spent 20 years doing this, and then you become this, and then you don't learn again. So then if it took you 20 years to get to this stage, then why don't you even spend a second learning in order to get to this stage? And this is the fallacy that people fall into, and this is the illusion of career growth, right? If you look at this, you start to see that this is an illusion. You need to add this in between here in order to get to here and get to here, right? BIM coordination, BIM management is a learning process itself, much more than BIM modeler. Because when you're a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, you're making the decision, so you learn through decision making. But BIM modelers don't really make much decisions in terms of like high level coordination decisions, so they don't learn as much. So you're in a stagnant position here, you're in a growth oriented position here, but in order to go from here to here, you need to learn. Right? So I talked about this. I talked about like the psychological. I didn't talk about the psychological principle yet. I'm about to talk about that now, right? What is the new way which is based on science and psychology that's going to allow you to go from here to here, okay? There's a reason why this happens, right? Because like it should only happen to 1 or 2 people, because this makes so much sense when you write it out like this, but why does it happen to everyone? And why will it happen to you if you just go down the traditional path? Well, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're hired as a factory to pack boxes on a conveyor belt, okay? Put your thinking hat on now, and we're going to talk about packing boxes on a conveyor belt. There are 2 variables that you need to consider. What is the skill you have? So you have the labor skill, your ability to pack boxes. What is the job you get? Packing boxes, right? Your skill matches your job. You have a labor skill, you can pack boxes. You're in a conveyor belt at a factory, okay? Think about that. That makes sense. After 5 years of packing boxes, you're probably going to ask yourself, I've been stagnant for a while and I can't be the manager of a box packing factory. I want to be the manager of a box packing factory that looks after the whole conveyor belt line. I want to do that because I've had experience for 5 years doing that, right? This might seem like the next logical step because you have experience packing boxes, but I want you to keep in mind that your skill hasn't actually changed. You've just become better at packing boxes. You have not even taken 1 step into learning management theory or becoming a manager or learning anything, right? And so you've actually only become better at packing boxes. So what makes you qualified to even ask for the job when it comes to management? And there's no reason at all that they're going to give you that job. And so that's why you're going to be the box packer, and then they're going to hire someone else from another company or some guy with a degree that's going to come in that knows the basic management theories and that can learn on the job. You haven't even learned the basic management theories or learned the skill set in order to even take that opportunity when it arises, right? It makes sense when we look about it in terms of like labor and all these other things, but then it's sort of hard to apply that into your career in terms of BIM coordination. But this is the main thing that you need to understand. If you do a job, you do not learn necessarily. You need to understand, when am I learning? When am I doing my job? Most of the time you won't learn because you become good at a job and you just do it over and over again. You need to spend time learning in order to grow. So you need to do 2 jobs. And if you don't do the second job, you will always have to do the first job. So the second job is investing time in learning skills. And if you don't do that job, you'll always be stuck at that first job, which will be, okay? So let me actually tie this together with this psychological principle that I'm about to tell you, right? Humans psychologically will move away from pain more than they will go towards pleasure. And I'm going to talk about the study with a mouse and a cat and the cheese, okay? So They did a study with rodents, rats, where they had a rat and they tied the rat to like a spring, and they just, when the rat ran, the spring would like measure how much force the rat is pulling with, right? And so they put a piece of cheese in the front of the cage, and they had the rat run there because it could smell the cheese, and they would run and they would have like 1 Newton or like 1 unit of force because the rat is running towards the cheese, right? That is moving towards pleasure. Like, I want the cheese, let me get it, right? What they did then was they put a smell of a cat from behind. What happens? The strength multiplied to 4 to 5 times. So now instead of going with 1 Newton, the rat's running with 4 Newtons. So instead of moving towards something, they're moving away from something. So if you're moving away from pain, you go 5 times faster than you're moving towards pleasure. And this is the main psychological principle I want you to understand. There's 2 reasons people change, right? Stagnation happens naturally and there's 2 reasons. You can either move forward towards something or you can move away towards something. Either way, the direction is the same. The direction is moving forward. But what matters is, what are you doing? Are you moving away from something or are you moving towards something, right? When you don't have a job at all, think about this, right? Because the way this applies back to BIM coordination is like, think about when you didn't even have the job that you currently work. You had no job. Let's just say I did this. I pulled you out of your job, you got fired tomorrow. What's going to happen? You have no job, so you're very inclined to learn. Like, when you had no job, you were very inclined to learn skills like Revit to get a job as a modeler. That's what we talked about at the start. You went to university, you spent all that money on university, you spent money on courses, you spent money trying to learn Revit on YouTube, making a portfolio, learning how to do CVs, learning job interviews, going on YouTube and typing how to do job interviews, and then talking to all these different employment people in order to help you get a job. You were in so much pain, you were trying to move away from pain back then, that you took so much action in order to create a good outcome for yourself, which is get a job as a Revit modeler, okay? So psychologically, that was the most pain you've actually been in, because you didn't have a skill set and you didn't have a job. You need a skill set in order to get a job. So that's why you learn to Revit in order to get your modeling job, right? Once you get the job, you're comfortable. There's technically not as much pain compared to when you didn't have a job. So because of this, you're not actually inclined or driven to learn the new skill in order to take the next step. When a factory worker finally gets his job as a box packer after a few years, they have not learned management theory. And if they haven't learned that, then there's no reason that they're going to be able to sit on that production line and even understand what is required to take care of the production line, the theory behind it. But before that, you might have taken a job in order to pack boxes quicker, or you would have done anything in order to get that job in the first place. Once you get it, you're not going to really focus on the next step, because when you had nothing, you focused on the next step. But when you have something, you're not going to focus on the next step, right? Because you're not moving away from pain. The pain would have been, if you're a BIM modeler and you didn't get a job after university, you would have thought that you would have been perceived as a failure. You would have been at home, you would have no money, you would have no income, you'd have no job, you would have felt like it was a waste. That is the pain you were trying to move away from, which caused you to learn Revit, apply for these companies, get a modeling job. What's the pain you're in now in order to get to next position, which is BIM coordination, BIM management? There is no pain, because you might be moving towards a vision like, oh, I have the desire to grow, but where's the pain? There's no pain. You're comfortable now, you're socially accepted, living with a certain salary that is conducive to your lifestyle, everything is nice. So like, you might have an idea, but there is no pain. That is the psychological principle. But the good news is I have a strategy in order to actually create growth and force growth without actually having to experience pain, okay? So again, we talked about moving towards a vision or moving away from pain. Psychologically, there is no other reason for you to change your current circumstance. Either you have a desire to go somewhere or a desire to not be where you are. The desire to go somewhere has to be so strong, like the rat has to be starving that they want the cheese in order for them to put their last effort in order to get the cheese. But if there is no desire that strong in order to go, there has to be an extreme amount of pain in order for you to grow, right? Based on science, it's very clear that the force generated and the action generated when you're moving away from pain is much greater and highly guaranteed, okay? How does this apply in the context of BIM? we talked about when you didn't have a job and when you were insecure that you wouldn't land a job because you have this degree and now you're not going to get a job, and then how that created pain that allowed you to grow. Okay? So when, in short, you focus on developing skills and learning back then, but then after you get that job, you do not focus on developing skills and learning because you're doing your job. So then you do not grow, right? You're probably thinking right now, great, now I have to introduce a lot of pain into my life in order to grow into BIM coordinator, BIM manager. No, you don't. Like, that's the whole point of telling you this psychological principle and understanding how your brain actually works, is the pain isn't actually what causes the career growth. The pain is what causes the action, which makes you develop skills that cause the career growth, right? If you are happy with where you are, you will stay where you are. That's just how it works, because your brain is not going to look for methods in order to develop skills in order to grow. But if you are not happy where you are, you will grow because you are moving away from something, which is your current position, right? So how do we take advantage of this and force ourselves to grow even against our own will without any pain? By now, you probably understand the reason for growth is not necessarily pain, but learning skills and taking action. Pain is the catalyst for that. Pain causes you to take action, learn skills, that causes the outcome, right? Learning skills and educating yourself is what actually causes growth. The pain is the catalyst for that. So if you don't have to be in a messed up situation where you have bills to pay which you can't pay, you're so unhappy about your life and you have so many dependents that you can't even provide for them, that you spend 18 hours a day learning this new skill in order to grow. You don't have to be in that position. You don't have to introduce pain, right? You just need to understand where you want to get to, and just by understanding the principle of pain, you can create action without necessarily having the pain, and I'll show you how. Once you have a job, it's actually impossible for you. I want you to understand this, right? Once you have the job, like you didn't have a job, now you have a job as a Revit modeler, it's actually impossible for you to recreate the same level of pain, which makes you jump over your action threshold in order to work to get the new skills, okay? Once you get the job, it's actually impossible for you to recreate what the position you were in before you had the job, okay? So it's actually, you can't develop the same level of pain. And this is the reason why a lot of people that work with me are able to get the outcome very quickly, is because when you start working with me, we're working together. Now I'm talking to you, making sure you're learning everything you need to about BIM and coordination, and so you can become an expert. I walk you through applying jobs, learning the skills, doing everything, make sure that you're accountable to say your desire, you tell me your desire, and I force you to get that outcome, right? And so we are achieving the outcome of becoming a BIM coordinator, a BIM manager, and you might not even want to do it at times, but you have to now because we've talked about your desire to grow. It's the same as you wanting to go to the gym and then falling off after a few weeks, being inconsistent, versus now you pay a personal trainer, and now the personal trainer gives you the diet plan, gives you everything, gives you the resources. Now you have to go because he's doing check-ins with you, okay? But there's people that maybe have been really overweight in the past that didn't even need a personal trainer. They were in so much pain that they were in the gym for 6 hours straight, okay? What's the difference? Pain. Pain causes you don't need accountability when you have pain because you're trying to move away from something. But when you're not in pain, which is impossible to replicate after you get the job, you actually need to turn on this psychological principle of accountability, which is going to replace the pain and going to force you to grow, okay? The principle is called inducing artificial pain. This is what I created, right? There is no suffering or pain. However, you're going to act in accordance as if there was. And the reason this can happen is because you have this thing called accountability. This is why education, taking courses, getting mentorships is so important and is so effective. When someone's accountable, when someone has committed that they want to learn something and they want to grow, they can get the same outcome without the pain, right? People come to me, they say, I want to learn this coordination skill set because I want to grow. They are actually technically moving away from something because they see people 10 years into their career, 15 years into their career, sitting next to them in a cubicle next to them, and they're also Revit modelers. They are also Revit modelers, their colleagues are also Revit modelers, and they don't want to be like their colleagues 10, 15 years into their career, down into their career. And they are actually moving away from the future, the version of the future, which does not actually have any growth. The version of the future where you are a Revit modeler. That is the pain, okay? So you are technically doing that. But instead of getting to that version of the future where you're 10 years into your career and you're still a Revit modeler and you're really upset with where you are and you haven't actually grown in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they understand this psychological principle and they be proactive by inducing artificial pain. Okay, and so there's no pain at all when you induce artificial pain. You're just understanding where you want to get to, what version of the future you want to avoid, and then you are learning the skills and staying accountable. So, I mean, you either feel the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, right? Either way, you will feel some pain. So it's better to take action and learn the things that you know you need to learn now, so later on you will not regret it and be unsatisfied with life. So the easiest way to grow are two things. You need to invest your time in learning skills, and you need accountability. This is what actually is going to artificially substitute extreme pain that you had before when you didn't even have a job. When you have a job, in order for you to grow, since you can't replicate the same psychology that you were in, you need accountability and you need to invest in time to learn skills, okay? So you need like a vision of where you want to get to, but that vision is actually not going to get you to where you want to get to because it's not strong enough desire to pull you because you're comfortable, right? You're socially accepted as a Revit modeler in society. You're helping society. You're providing for your family. Like, why would you need to grow? You're already at a good position. Why you can just take Fridays off and relax, right? The easiest way to grow is to make sure that you have both of these things at once. One of these things is not, like if you just have accountability and then you don't have a method to learn the skills, if someone's asking you every single week, hey, have you been able to learn it? And you don't actually have a structured way to learn the things, then you're not gonna, like, what are you learning? Nothing. There's no place to put the energy into. You need to reduce your threshold, right? So like if someone's saying like, hey, have you done the thing? And you don't even know what the thing is, for you to even figure out what the thing is takes some time. That's increasing your action threshold. So now you have so many hurdles you have to jump in order to take action. But if you have a structured program, this is what I need to do. There's exact step-by-step like examples of what you need to do and pretty much step-by-step guides of what you need to do. As soon as someone says, hey, have you done the thing? You know exactly what you need to be doing, right? I'm talking about like going and doing a course, learning a skill on YouTube, learning a LinkedIn skill, like something like that, which allows you to learn a skill and you need some sort of accountability. If you want to make sure that you are setting time to learn a skill set that is required to take you to your goal, you want to make sure that you have someone checking up on you and make sure that you're actually learning the skill. If you try to say to yourself, oh, now that I know the psychological principle, that I'm not able to replicate the same amount of pain as I did at the start of my career, and so I know that, so I'm just going to work hard. It doesn't actually work, because when's the last time, there's probably been so many times where you've given promises to yourself and you haven't actually taken action, or you've done something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2-3 days maybe, and then you've fallen off and you haven't been able to be consistent with it. And so that is the reason why you are in this position where you're stuck and you're stagnant. So if you're stuck and stagnant right now, it's because, understand, you are actually not in enough pain as much as you think. Like, you might feel stagnant, but it's not really that negative, right? So there's not enough psychological pain. So how do you actually grow? Well, skills plus accountability equals career growth. So you need someone to tell you exactly what to learn. You need someone to guide you through exactly what to learn, give you a structured program. You need someone to hold you accountable to that. Hey, have you been learning this? Here's exactly what we're going to learn. Someone to create a version of the future that you want to get to. And then you just need to be consistent with that for the next couple of months. And then you can get to that outcome. So if you're a current Revit modeler, you want to become a BIM coordinator, very simple. Figure out exactly the steps you need to take in order to do a BIM workflow, in order to do a clash coordination, right? A clash detection, learn the MEP basics, all these things. Get someone to hold you accountable to that, and then you will get there. It's a very simple mathematical equation that a lot of people struggle to find. But this is how you can force yourself to grow in areas without feeling like you have to do the hard work to grow. This is how people naturally grow and how people are naturally stagnant. If you're spending time learning skills and someone else is keeping you accountable and teaching you the exact skills you need to learn and making sure that you are not learning them, making sure that not learning them is impossible, then you will actually grow in your career, right? And so some people get very lucky in their careers because they are in careers where they have very good bosses, very good managers, very good mentors that sit them down and actually teach them for a few hours each day how to grow, how to do their job, how to take work off their plate. But a lot of companies don't have that. So if you have that in your company, you have a really good training program that you can actually spend time on. You can spend time with your boss with your boss's boss, with everyone that's senior, and spend time, learn these things, learn exactly how they think, what their experiences are, how they would approach problems. Spend time with them, then naturally over time you will actually be able to get to that stage. But a lot of people do not have that opportunity because their companies are very busy and they're not actually focusing on training them. So as a result of this causes career stagnation, and this is why some people grow very rapidly and some people don't grow. Okay? This is why people go back for MBAs and masters and all these things later on into their career, because they know once they learn certain skills, then it opens up opportunities in their jobs, right? In summary, I want you to understand that it's psychological pain which will drive you to take action consistently. Once you have a job, you will never be in enough psychological pain to consistently take action to grow you to the next stage in your career. It is impossible because you are socially accepted once you have a job and you are a functioning member of society. So if you try to think that you can do it, you won't be able to do it. And so the easiest thing for you to do is make sure you understand this equation. Skills plus accountability equals career growth. Make sure you learn the skills, have someone that's going to be accountable, hold you accountable, and your career will grow. And don't fall into this trap of being a BIM modeler and not becoming a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, just because you're trying to do your current position. Essentially, you have to do two things. You have to do your current position and the next position. The next position is you learning. Remember, education and skills is what got you to BIM modeler. Education and skills is what's going to get you to BIM coordinator, BIM manager. You being able to get more experience and then blindly applying to companies is not actually going to allow you to grow into that career, right? It's pretty impossible from what I've seen. So understand that once you become a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, this is a growth-oriented role. Like, you'll be able to become project manager, start your own firm, become independent consultant, because you're learning so much on the job. But as a BIM modeler, you're sort of pigeonholed into just doing one thing. And so learning skills is what's going to get you out of that and get into the next stage. Okay? And so if this video was helpful, I have another video linked somewhere below which goes through sort of how exactly you can become a BIM coordinator. I go step by step through everything that I did in order to become a BIM coordinator, BIM manager, and I teach you the exact skills. So go watch that, and you can book a call with me if you want me to help you one-on-one as well. See you guys in the next one.